the business for now over 30 years. So we'll start out. I'll give you guys a little bit of background on who I am and how I sort of started going down this path and over 30 years ago, and give you I think a few pointers and tips. But at the end of the day, this won't be prescriptive by any stretch of the imagination. However, it will be eye-opening, I think, in some regard for you. And I think it's very important that I'm going to invite. We have others. As others come in, we'll give them opportunity to come in and talk if they'd like, and say hello. But let me just give you a little bit of background. Many of you I've talked to before, others I have not. Give you a little bit of background in terms of why I'm doing this. And I will tell you the one thing, not that I've been doing this, and there's a lot of reasons, but here recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, as you all know, was National Match Day. And I wrote a blog about this. And I was watching my Twitter feed and going through all the usual kind of social media. I did have a busy day on that. I think it was Wednesday, the 18th of March, if I'm not mistaken. And as I was scrolling through and just, looking at the excitement, looking at the disappointment, someone posted in one of the chats the number to the National Suicide Hotline. And I said, really? You kidding me? I mean, this can't be real. And then I started thinking about, oh yeah, it can be real. So, get over it, Coop. I mean, literally, do you really think that there's not someone out there who cares so much about this that they would actually potentially contemplate something as tragic as that? So I really, I started responding to a lot of the tweets to the people that matched. Congratulations to those who didn't match. Hey, enthusiasm, stay with it. Don't be, discouraged. It will happen at some point in time. And it really got me to thinking back 30 years ago. Literally, this is my 30th year since my graduation from medical school in 1992, and really just reflecting back on all of the things that have occurred over those 30 years, and also thinking about how, my thoughts going into medicine and what I was thinking it was going to be. And now I have the vantage point of being able to now look in the rearview mirror and sort of put a little bit of perspective around it. So that's why I'm here with you all. I know, and I really certainly appreciate you being here and taking the time, because I am hopeful that, something that I say here will be helpful for you, and that we can also stay connected, and I can help you as you move along. I'm on the other side of my career in medicine. I'm really very, very fortunate that I got started very early. I went to a 6-year medical school at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. And so I literally have been a doctor since I was 23 years old. And now that was a very grueling 6 years. I don't, it's not for everyone. I highly recommend it for those who think they can pursue that route. But it's certainly by no stretch of the imagination for everyone. And that's the good thing about medical education. There's so many different ways that you can go. If I go back, and I'm going to talk here probably till about 5:30. It's 5:10 right now, just giving you a little bit of background on me and my story and some perspective. Then I'm going to open up for questions for you all, because that's the most important thing to me, is being able to answer your questions and try to give you a little bit of help as you move along the way. I started out on this journey, as I said, in 1986. I was accepted to medical school at the University of Missouri in Kansas City, which at that time was one of only 2 purely 6-year programs in the country that I'm aware of. There was University of Missouri in Kansas City, and also Northeastern Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Again, purely 6-year. And then, of course, as you all know, there are many hybrid iterations of that exist in academic institutions all over the country now. Our school was modeled on the European system of medical education. Our founder, Edmonds Gray Diamond, who was a cardiologist, actually was a world traveler a Renaissance man, even in the 70s, I would say, because I mean, he just had so many interests. He traveled extensively across Europe and Asia. Asia, I think, was one of his favorite places. And I'll never forget that as 19, gosh, just a few years ago before he died, I got a letter in the mail, a typewritten letter from him saying, thank you for being a part of the experiment. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting. I didn't remember signing up for a research study, but it was literally his reflection on the accomplishments and the outcome for the school, as well as the accomplishments and accolades for the students, the first 1,000 students that I was a part of that, who had graduated from the University of Missouri in Kansas City. I thought it was fantastic. I still have that letter somewhere in a box between moves from my home, and that was very, very special to me. So my medical education was, again, compressed. We missed a little bit of the usual kind of going to the 4-year undergraduate college and, hitting the bong and doing all the silly things that people do in college. But we had fun. And more importantly, we got a really solid medical education. And so that's kind of what my experience was. I went through that program eyes wide open. The thing that motivated me to go into medicine, I came from a really, not highly academic family, but a very successful family. I mean, if you think about it, I grew up in a small town in southern Missouri. My dad and mom were educators. My dad had 2 brothers that were doctors. I had cousins who were a huge family, cousins who went before me who went into medicine and dentistry and law and some of these other things. So I had examples in front of me and people who I could reach out to for information. At that time, you got to remember, there was no internet, certainly the way that we know the internet today. There was no cell phones, there was no social media, and all the other things that we enjoy today in terms of how we acquire information. I was always interested in sciences. I thought that was very, very cool stuff. I enjoyed the simple anatomy classes that we had when I was in high school, dissecting earthworms and whatever other animal people could find for you to dissect. I thought that was very fascinating. I did very well in the biological sciences when I was in high school. The one thing, however, that really catapulted me over the top and said, okay, you're going to go into this medicine, very altruistic. My mom died when I was 14 of pancreatic cancer. And so I was like, man, I'm going to go into medicine now and change the world and really, conquer and cure this cancer thing. A very noble pursuit, but in reality, that was not going to happen. And so, but, it wasn't, that was after I got into medical school that I realized that, that just wasn't for me. And I thank my medical school for giving me the opportunity to experience all of the various disciplines and quote rotations and things like that. And the thing that really turned me on was surgery first. And then I had the opportunity to rotate with, I'm doing this. I know most of you all are probably already beyond that, but I'm doing this because a lot of the inquiry, this will be available in a recorded state later on, but I get a lot of inquiries from young people who are thinking about pursuing healthcare and becoming doctors. And so this is for their benefit as well. So just bear with me here for another 15 minutes or so, and then we'll get to talking about your questions. The surgery for me, when I got to medicine, it was just a hands-on thing. It was, I enjoyed all aspects of it. And, I listened to some of these discussions on social media now, that are kind of, well, I enjoyed psychiatry. I thought it was absolutely fascinating to sit there and listen to people on this rotation talk about, and we have some of our friends. Hey there, Alan, how are you, dude? Chiming in from, if I'm not mistaken, Alan, you're in West Africa. If you're my West African, please just put that in the chat if you don't mind. Yeah, it was one of those things where, I was just fascinated with everything. I really enjoyed it all. There was nothing about it. Somebody said, I saw a little poll on Twitter the other day. What was the most difficult year? I don't even remember. All the years were difficult. It was just, it wasn't, I didn't see it that way. I saw the world differently. And I think because of that, I was able to appreciate my medical education. It wasn't about passing the test as much as it was about passing the test. I just appreciate now in retrospect that I was really getting a lot out of it. I was really just fascinated with just about everything. So I really took the deep dive and really got into it and really, hey, this is going to be my life. This is information that I'm going to need for the remainder of my life as I go through my career. And so I enjoyed all of that, but the hands-on immediate satisfaction was more about me. I mean, I really enjoyed the fact that, in surgery, you could do something and you could see the result, almost immediately in some cases. And, if it turned out well, patients were happy once they recovered, and it was almost like turning a new leaf on life. That fit with me. So again, I was thinking about what really got me going and what turned me on when I chose a surgical subspecialty. And then I got to do open heart surgery with a group there in Rotate. Back in those days, we still had beepers. And I remember we had cell phones. They gave you a beeper, and, it was fantastic. These guys would call me in the middle of the night to do a case. Alan, you're in Houston. Okay, got it. All right. You're from Nigeria. There you go. Hey, man, thank you for getting me straight. All right, but thank you for joining us via LinkedIn. I appreciate that, Alan. And so, it was amazing because throughout my career, I had people like that who just embraced who I was, embraced the fact they were just pleased that I was there to kind of, understand what it is they do. And now, not everybody was like that. You had some of the, the kind of people that most of you have probably met. Hey, Stephen, how you do? I see you out there. And so they were, these were people that genuinely wanted to be helpful and wanted to see you thrive. And I think in some cases it was a little bit of ego, because I think they also wanted to show off what they could do. And, the medical student is always so amazed. And, that's a good feeling for someone who is, you have no idea what they're going through as a surgeon or a clinician trying to manage that particular patient. At least at the time, you thought it was easy. But I can tell you, now after 30 years, a lot of times it wasn't that easy, and it isn't that easy. But anyway, it was those little things like that. I'll never forget being there in the middle of the night, and I got called in to do this case. Patient had an infarct and then a ruptured papillary muscle and had wide open mitral regurgitation. That's a bad problem. Even today, it's still a bad problem because it's often very difficult. The patient's in fluid, the lungs are affected. They're in fluid heart failure. Their whole inflammatory response is kicked in. The fight or flight is kicked in. You got all kinds of things going on there. So that's a difficult case. But I remember watching as I was going through that, in the middle of that, saying to myself, I can do this. This is not, it wasn't that, it was just an epiphany. Literally, here we are, 2:00 in the morning, I'm just holding hooks, but I was happy. I was like, wow, I could probably do this. And the very interesting anecdote with that is 30 years later, almost, the surgeon who was doing that case, he and I became partners last year when I, for a very brief period of time, went back on faculty at the University of Kansas. Jeff Kramer it was actually literally his first year out as an attending after having trained 10 years at WashU and undergrad and doing all that stuff. And he was a young attending. I was so amazed. I was so impressed. And Jeff's retired now, but I tried to remind him of this story. He couldn't remember it. I could see it. I could tell you right now, there's probably literally hundreds of med students who've scrubbed with me on crazy cases and they don't remember. I can't remember them having been there. But nonetheless, so I get on this pathway to cardiac surgery. I applied at a number of places, and thankfully I had the grades. I had the insert, or the whatever we call this. It's not an in-service exam, but we actually did an exam on a yearly basis, almost like a prep for the boards when I was in medical school. And so I did that. I had really strong clinical experience in medical school. And again, for those of you who are listening who are already in medical school, residency, or training or whatever, just remember I'm doing this also. I'm recording this and doing it for the benefit of medical students who are those who are not even in med school yet, who call and reach out for advice and wanting to be or just to get some understanding and perspective on this business of healthcare. And so, I left there. I left Emory, and after getting, accepted, the big, multi, I guess, dimensional surgical program. You had a VA system. You had a Children's Hospital, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, formerly known as Eggleston. You had Grady, the big public hospital, trauma, level 1 trauma center. We had the private kind of in-town kind of urban, really, I guess, if you will, great payer mix kind of hospital at Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. We had Emory University Hospital. We also had Crawford Long Hospital, a little bit different patient experience at all of those places. But I was able to go to a program that allowed me to gain that experience. I'm very, very fortunate for that. And another sort of one of those seminal moments that you have in your career, I'll never forget. It was literally July 1st or somewhere very close to July 1st. First day of my residency, I was assigned to Crawford Long Hospital, which is now Emory Midtown Hospital in Atlanta. I'll never forget. I walked into the doctor's dressing room and looking for the little locker that they assigned the PGY1 resident. I had my little short white coat on. I'm 6'1", so that today that's cool, but back in those days, I'm like, okay, that really defines you as you're an intern. And so there was that sort of, we just want to put that little mark on you so people know you're a doctor, yeah, but you're an intern, really. And so although it was on your badge, the white coat, the short white coat, really gave you away. So I remember just coming out, I was kind of looking around trying to find this locker. And this a little bit older gentleman comes in and, he looks at me and he says, "Hey, my name is Robert Guyton." He came over and shook my hand and, "Hey, I could tell you, where are you looking? You're looking for your locker?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, the intern's locker's over there." He said, "Well, I'm Dr. Guyton. I'm the chief of cardiac surgery at Emory. Welcome to Emory, and stop by our OR sometime and check us out." And at that moment in time, it was surreal because I was like, "Guyton, do I know this guy?" I didn't say that. I said, "Oh yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it." I was this giddy little intern. And if you all recognize the name, it's you all had to study the textbook of medical physiology by Albert Guyton. That's Albert Guyton is Robert Guyton's father. There were 10 of them and 10 kids. I can't remember the boy girl, maybe more boys, but they all went to Harvard. They all graduated with honors, and they all went into med. They're all doctors. I mean, and so I was like, wow, really? I remember telling my now wife, girlfriend at the time, I was telling this, oh man, I was so amazed. She's like, "Oh, really?" We were so amazed. Robert Guyton and I exchanged texts today, like it's like nothing. But that's how this thing works out. But he became a mentor. I remember going into his OR and just kind of standing there watching when there weren't hernias on the schedule or something else to do. And 3 years later, I went into his lab, and then for a couple years, and then I came back, finished up, went back into the cardiac surgery fellowship, and then joined the faculty at Emory. And during that period of time, there was, this is really, really competitive stuff. And I didn't, I realized it to some extent, but I was very fortunate having landed at a place that has such a strong surgical program, such a diverse experience for the residents who end up there. And then the cardiac surgery, at least at that point in time, I think, and even still today, I think probably one of the better experiences you can get in cardiovascular training for the same reasons that the surgical training is so good. And so I ended up being invited to stay on faculty. 2 years after that appointment, we were starting at Emory. We were starting a heart program at Wellstar Kennestone Hospital in conjunction with them. It was a joint program. And the reason to do that for Emory was to expand the residency program, train fellows and residents. And of course, for that hospital, so that they could get there, Georgia is a certificate of need state. In other words, you have to be approved. So it was much more attractive to the state to allow this hospital to do cardiac surgery when they knew you were going to also be training residents. What does that do? And what's the thinking there? It's the workforce. You got to think about it. I mean, here I am now, not doing 300 cases or hearts a year like I did when I was at Emory. Somebody's got to be doing that, though. The volume is still there. There's still somebody there in Georgia who can do those things. And so 2 years into it, I did a really good job clinically. And so Dr. Guyton asked me to go there, and I was going to be the junior surgeon with a more senior surgeon. Well, as things happened, the senior surgeon, who was not quite at Emory yet, decided that enough's enough. He'd been in the business for a while, good surgeon out of Pennsylvania, and just decided, hey, look, I'm going to go in the industry. He had some other entrepreneurial interest in terms of device development, and so he went and joined one of the medical device companies. And so all of a sudden, we're on the precipice, hopefully within less than a year, of starting this program. They had no one. So me being a little bold whippersnapper, I went to Dr. Guyton. I said, I can do this, Dr. Guyton. I really think I can do this. He's like, really? Are you kidding me? You can barely tie your shoes yet. He didn't say that. But I know what he's probably thinking, like, really? Am I going to really put myself on the line and send a guy out here to start a heart surgery program who's less than 3 years out of his fellowship? Once again, very fortunate, because after some contemplation, he didn't say yes right away. He didn't say no. He did what most people in a mentorship leadership position would do when you get a young person like that who comes to you. Just listened. Okay, that's all he did. He just listened. And I'm sure he was thinking in his head, okay, I've got a problem. I've got to put somebody out here because I'm the chief. I'm not going out there. And all of these other people that are under my leadership, other surgeons, at different stages in their academic careers, would it really be it'd be kind of disruptive to them, perhaps. And then I got this guy who's trying to figure it out. He's a good surgeon, and has expressed an interest. What do we do? So he went and he spoke to the CEO of the hospital at that time at Wellstar, and they gave me the job. So here I am, medical director of a new heart program, totally different hospital. 3 years out of my training, and all I knew how to do was operate. Literally, I was pretty good at that. All right, and I knew how to get good results, but also knew that I would have good backup. I knew I could always call on Dr. Guyton if I got into hopefully not get into a situation, then call, but discuss difficult cases before I got there. I humbled myself, and I said, wait a second, you're pretty good, but you're not that good. So I just humbled it. I didn't do it in the first 100 cases. Dr. Guyton said, look, first 100 cases, you just need to have 0 deaths. He said, so don't do any redos. Don't do anybody with low ejection fractions or anything that you're concerned about. Discuss every case with me. I said, okay. So I did that. We went to case 106 without a death. And I blame that death on me because it probably was going to happen anyway. But I missed a patient who had right ventricular heart failure, cor pulmonale, who didn't quite present like the blue bloater. And so we weren't as aggressive back in those days as doing PFTs and CT scans and all those things now we know we should be doing in preoperative preparation for heart surgery. We weren't doing those things. And so it sneaked up on me. She had, we went into the operation and I did her bypass, and the RV just, it wasn't acute. It was really chronic. The RV just failed, and she eventually died of multi-organ failure, primarily brought on by liver congestion. And as you all know, that hepatorenal syndrome sets in, and then you lose your kidneys, and it's very difficult all the way around. And she ended up there. So we didn't lose a patient until patient 106. So I did 100, and I did all of them. And so that gives you a mortality less than 1%. And so that's important in heart surgery. It's important to establish yourself in a scenario like that. The thing that really got my attention was being put in. And the thing that also kind of really got me excited all of a sudden again was now I'm a medical director. I'm like, what is this? I mean, I don't know what that means. I was, at this point now we're in 2000. So, Google was kind of coming along and you had whatever the search engine was before Google. I think it was Netscape, or I don't know. You guys probably weren't even born back then, but you did have some online resources. And I never forget going into meetings and sitting there with the CEO of the hospital, the CEO of the entire health system, other executives, and I was a good head bobber. Y'all know the bobblehead. I could do this very well because they were talking about P&Ls and balance sheets and capital, budgets and all this other stuff, and I'm like just completely overwhelmed. Like, really, and I was like, wow, I was really blown away. So to the extent that I could, I got a Google PhD in finance and just about every other thing you could think about from a functional perspective on the business of healthcare. I started reading. I found a book though that I felt like was extremely helpful for me even back then, and I refer to that even to this day. It's over 20 years ago now. The book was The Southwest Airlines Way by Jody Gattell. She's a professor at Brandeis in Boston, and she was writing her. I think her this is for her PhD. She was just writing and doing this research on the success that Southwest Airlines was having when a lot of other in the 90s, a lot of the other major airlines were really struggling. Now, of course, as we know, a lot of that success had to do with their fuel purchase, a great business move, but it also had to do with the people that they hired and this human resource thing. So I really got to thinking about that. I said, man, I can operate, but I'm gonna need help. And so I really started thinking about the people that I put around me. And so, and then it became very, very valuable to have fostered a lot of good relationships with other young healthcare professionals, nurses, techs, other specialties, because they all looked at this and they were like, hey, I want to be a part of it. And PAs, a lot of them came with me. And so I was able to assemble this team of people that around me that were all kind of at the same point in their careers, all looking for that next horizon. So we were being very, very, quite frankly, we were being very ambitious and taking advantage of the opportunity that was set before us. And so that was very, very important in terms of establishing that success. And then later on, decided I was going to go back and I really got turned on by this whole idea of the business of medicine and all the things that were happening there. And really, that was, I went back and got my MBA, but that was like, to me, just almost much more powerful than just the thought of becoming a doctor in general. But so then you imagine combining those two. I had delusions of grandeur someday, being a hospital CEO and, doing all these wonderful things. And that wasn't me though. And I had to really do a gut check, because although that was, it looked good around me, I didn't, and I still don't to this day. I don't play well. And again, this is about knowing who you are. Okay. It's not a knock on me. It's just who I am. I play well in the sandbox, but I can be a little opinionated. Okay. I'm not much in the way of being political, and I don't play games. I just kind of, even with my patients, I just tell you like it is. I do it with love, caring, respect, and all those things. But I just knew that, kind of some of the intangibles that you need to do those kinds of jobs, probably didn't fit me. I went back, got my MBA, and so that was top of mind still, even in 2011. But then after I went through it, and was exposed to all those people who were getting their MBAs as well, I was like, man, this is fantastic. I was meeting all these young, smart people around me, and they're in all these other bits. But here's the one thing I realized during that experience, is that healthcare is everything. It's everywhere. I don't care what industry you're in. Hello, Eve, how are you? Thanks for joining us. I don't care what industry you are in, what profession, healthcare is everything. It's everywhere. Okay. It's almost more pervasive than the legal industry. But, not a lot of other industries can say that, healthcare really matters as much, because at the end of the day, the uniqueness of healthcare is the fact that we are dealing with, in some cases, life and death and people's well-being, different than a lot of other professions. All right. So just think about that as you move through your career. I'm going to stop there. I said I was going to talk for about 30 minutes. I'll stop there. We can pick that whole thing up later. But I want to just flip it a little bit back at you, because many of you have reached out to me for mentorship, for advice, probing, really, really very specific question. What should I do in certain situations or whatever else? Here's what I have to say about that. And we can explore this more. We'll be doing this more and more. I'll be doing a series of these, or maybe even on a more constant basis as our audience grows and the interest grows. But here's what I hope you picked up on throughout that little opening. And that is, and I feel so fortunate, is that at every turn, at every single turn, one, I took advantage of opportunity. Two, I had really good people who, with really good intentions, who reached out to me. I'm very fortunate. But the underpinning of all of that was I really stayed true to myself. Okay. It wasn't about Emory per se. Emory has its brand and its identity. I went to Emory's fantastic in terms of healthcare. All right. But if I go there, and if I think just because I'm under Emory's umbrella and somehow I'm going to take on the characteristics that make Emory so great just because I show up, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. So I say that to say that it's important, very important. When you say, what should I do? And I throw it back at you, as those of you who know and have had an opportunity to talk to me in private, I'm going to throw it right back at what should you do? Okay. Because the answer to the question doesn't come from me. The answer to the question comes from you. And you've got to humble yourself. I see. I mean, I could just feel it in the Twitter feed I was describing earlier on Match Day. Oh, I'm a new doctor. I'm going to Johns Hopkins. Or I'm going to the Cleveland Clinic. Or I'm going to Emory. I'm going to be the next greatest orthopedic surgeon. Okay. All right. I'm impressed. Okay. So now what? Okay. What happens when those hands don't quite work the way you thought they were going to work? What happens when you lose your first patient? What happens when you make your first mistake? What happens when you realize that as much as healthcare is a healthcare industry and a system ideally and theoretically designed to take care of people, when you realize that, quite frankly, at the end of the day, it has become, as much as it is about that, it's become about business, money. Okay? $3 trillion circulate through the healthcare industry in this country every year in salaries, drugs, devices, utilization of all kinds, you name it, $3 trillion. Private equity investors, the private equity people are about making money. Nothing wrong with that. I'm an investor in a few private equity firms. Nothing wrong with that. But you've got to realize that that's the industry in which you work. Okay. So all of that fluff and, ice cream on the top and cherry and all of this and that, at the end of the day, you've got to practice medicine. And the most important facet and aspect of that practice, no, it's not the patient. No, sorry. Now, you've heard that your whole medical career. Oh, it's patients first. Yeah, right. Is it really? No. It's you as a healthcare professional first. Because if you're flawed, then what are you going to deliver? You're going to deliver flawed care. If you're not happy, you're going to be that unhappy doctor walking around the hospital that's so damn mad at the world that, every phone call that comes to you, you're immediately on the defensive. Why? Here's a way to handle that. Just change your attitude. I went through all of that. I was hell on wheels when I was a resident. Okay. But then one day I had a conversation with one of my mentors, God rest his soul, Dr. Robert Smith. And I went back, I did a rotation at his office down in Memphis, Tennessee, from during the medical school allowed you to go out and do these, what they call externships. And I chose to go with him. He was a classmate of my dad's, grew up with my dad in my little small hometown in Southern Missouri. And, I'd heard so much about him. I was like, I'm going to go rotate with Dr. Smith. And I remember him one day and I asked the question, I said, man, your phone, Dr. Smith, is going off all the time. How do you, I said, you answer with so much grace and clarity and just, thoughtfulness and kindness with every single phone call. And he said, yeah, sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. I said, and it comes in the middle of the night. He said, yeah. He said, it's all the time. I run a solo practice. So somebody comes in the middle of the night with appendicitis, cholecystitis, or, ruptured this, ruptured that. I got to go and deal with it. He said, but it's not about them bothering me as much as it is about the way I changed my mind about it and to change my perspective, my attitude, my approach is someone on the other end of that phone needs your help. That's a humbling feeling if you think about it. They need your help, even if they're incompetent, and even if they're calling you about something that totally has nothing to do with you, they need your help. And guess what? Either they thought of you or that call schedule thought of you. And you should look at that and you say, hey, you know what? This is pretty good. This is a good opportunity, first of all, for me to help someone. All right. But it's also a learning experience. Even today, after having God knows how many heart cases I've done, I stopped counting after 10,000, and that's been almost 10 years ago. That includes residency and training and all the other crazy stuff I've done. And, even today, I look at each one of those scenarios and I say, okay, let me just listen here and let me think about what it is I can learn from this. And let me just tell you something. I love when I'm challenged with a scenario and I'm able to figure that out and intervene, in this case with surgery, and make a difference in someone's life. Okay. Now, whether you are so what am I saying now? What are you saying now, Cooper? What are you talking about? Whether you are a high schooler, college, or whatever you're thinking about going in this all applies. You have got to do some soul searching. And you really got to think about it. And I give you 4 dimensions. Okay. I'm going to give you 4 dimensions. All right. To help you kind of make decisions as you move through this. All right. Number 1 is you've got to do some visioning. All right. Now you'll see online and all these academic people, they have all these, steps. I'm not giving you that. I'm just giving you kind of some 4 dimensions of things that you need to think about as you get into this business. And these are very, very important for you to check on from time to time. One is you got to set a vision for where you're going. And that will change based on where you are. Some of you right now is just to, get into medical school. Some of you it's to get out of medical school and pass the boards. For other you it's to get into residency. For some of you it's to get into a fellowship. Some of you are at a point where it says, hey, I got to get a job. Okay. And so, but the vision, okay, even if it's at a different point in life, the overall vision is still there. Where are you going? And you need to be thinking in terms of a strategy and a plan. And I think a good time interval for those things is do that at about every 3 to 5 year interval. Okay. Some of you are not married. You're young. You're not married yet. Hey, do I want to get married at some point? Do I want to have children? Do I want to bring my significant other into my life? Okay. So those are really relevant things that you need to be thinking about as you move through this. So you got to set a vision for yourself. Other thing, and don't ever get rid of this. Okay. What are you passionate about? Yeah, it may be horse racing. It may be equestrian. It may be hockey. Don't ever give up those things, because those are the things that are going to make you a complete person. They're going to make you a better doctor and a complete person. All right. Over here, 3rd dimension, you're going to have interests, just things that you're curious about. For me, I didn't really realize it until I was exposed to it, but I really had a real strong interest in the business of healthcare. It was just intriguing to me to think how people have, capitalists, quite frankly, have, come into healthcare and really completely turned it on its head in some cases. All right. Again, I'm a capitalist, nothing really wrong with that, but it creates a lot of problems and tensions within the system that, again, we'll get to those over time. And then the last, and probably where you are right now, which is foundational. Make sure you're getting the right foundation. So if you are pre-med, all right, if you're in high school, okay, and I used to do a lot of high school mentoring. But let me just tell you, high school schoolers, I was there once. You're scatterbrained, most of you. You're all over the place. I mean, I've got literally thousands of you probably in my phone or email database, and you talk about, oh, I want to do this on it. Okay, good. And 99% of that changes over time. Okay. And that's okay. All right. That's okay. You're exploring, you're curious, and there's nothing wrong with that. You may be pre-med. Okay. And that's okay too. All right. But you've got to, regardless of where you are in this, all right, you've got to think about what it is you need. Your passion is going to be there. Your interests are going to be the same. Where you're trying to go is important. Okay. Very, very important. Probably the most important thing is then you can cloud out all the noise. All right. Because you're on a pathway, but the foundation is very important. All right. I personally don't believe it really matters much, in my observation, where you go to medical school. Quite frankly, you can get a PhD almost these days online. Okay. And that's fine. Okay. You can get information. The key in a medical school or a residency program is this. And this is where I say I think my medical school is the best medical school in the world. It's how do you apply that information? I've met and worked with some of the dumbest people, smartest, dumbest people you'll ever meet. They can't translate. It doesn't translate for them. They score 99% on the in-service exams. They blow away the boards, but when you put a patient in front of them, they cave. They completely collapse. They can't connect the two. So when you go into these scenarios where you're now beginning to interview from, ask those aren't the questions that they're going to be posed to you. Everybody, all of you look the same, okay, on paper. And it's very difficult as an examiner or as a interviewer to really sift through all of that. I've gotten pretty good at it over the years. So I can kind of, sift through the crap and get to the heart of it. I know how to ask the right questions. So just pray to God you don't ever have to interview with me, because it's going to be a real interview. Okay. But I'm going to make it fair. I'm going to make it about you, because I want you to be, if nothing else, everybody I've ever interviewed will say this: I learned something from that guy. I learned something, because I always give you a synopsis of what we talked about, what I think your strengths and weaknesses are. Okay. And where I think you stand. I don't want you, I am just not one of these people to waste a lot of time with superficialities, because that's not going to help you. If you surround yourself your entire life with people who tell you what you want to hear, you are headed to exactly nowhere. You might as well just stop. Okay. And so the foundation, back to that, you really got to think about the foundational skills that you need. Okay. I'm a part of several groups, and I've heard these discussions. Oh, you got to pass the exam. You got to. Oh, let me just tell you something. Heart surgery, there's three things you need. You need a lot of this. There's no doubt about that. Probably a little bit above average. Okay. You've got to have a hell of a good set of these hands. Okay. And thirdly, you've got to have a really good heart. Okay. Because the hands and the heart are going to take you where you need to go, because the heart creates the right intention. All right. And if you got the head, you can put the hands and the heart with the head and your thought processes to get the best that your patients deserve. All right. So, I did well on all of those exams and things like that. But I really credit the foundation, where I was, the people who were around me. And then it wasn't always very obvious, because at the end of the day, for you to get that, you have got to engage. You've got to be willing to absorb and extract all of that. And I'm going to shut up here, because I got about 10 minutes left. I really want to answer your questions. But again, this isn't the last straw. We're going to do this again. We will come back to these issues, because I want to create a discussion group with you all. Just so you know, this gives me opportunity. I want to talk to everybody. I really do. But God knows it's so hard when I get 50 million texts and phone calls and emails. And so it's easier just to collectively bring everyone else in, or everybody in at one time. But strip your egos, guys. Let me tell you something. You're smart. You're good. Yeah, we know that. You went to Timbuktu University. You're going to do well. Yeah, don't impress me with that. Impress me with how you take care of people, how you engage in this profession, how you really begin to think about it and understand it and have respect for humanity and those people that you serve. Because at the end of the day, the two most important people in this process for you, what did I say? It's you. Forget about that mess about the patients first. No, because if you're a flawed human being, and we have a bunch of them in healthcare, you're not going to be worth a crap to a patient. All right. So let's get ourselves right first, and then we can deliver that great care that we all feel like our patients deserve. We know they deserve that. So I'm going to stop there. I've done a lot of talking. I wanted to do a lot of talking this time around. For those of you who have joined us, wherever you may be joining, LinkedIn, Facebook. I think we're live on YouTube. Looks like we're live on Twitter as well. I think it's fantastic. But I'm gonna stop right here. I've got Stephen. I didn't acknowledge you. Thank you for coming. Eve, I'm not sure. Eve, I'm gonna bring you in to speak, and then I'm gonna stop right there. I've said a lot, but I really want to hear from you. I want to hear a comment, a question, a perspective, or anything you might have. And again, this is not the Last Supper, at least I hope. We'll come back and we'll do this again at probably another month or two or whatever. We'll do it as often as you guys request me. But when I start getting a bunch of requests, I really thought it was just the most efficient way to do this. So Stephen, you want to say something? You want to come on, Steve, and just you had a question, comment, or just say hello? I didn't do that earlier with you, so that's why I'm doing it now. Stephen, are you there?
Hey, Dr. Cooper, I'm here.
Hey, Stephen, how are you? Good, good. Thank you for coming in. Any thoughts or perspectives, or any questions you want to ask, or things you want to bring up for the group?
First, I just want to say that was a very good thought process behind everything that you said. I think one question I would ask would be, I am currently a fourth-year medical student at Morehouse, and I'll be starting my integrated cardiac residency at UNC. So do you have any advice for any incoming interns?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I appreciate you. So you're at Morehouse now finishing up, and you've been accepted to the cardiac track at UNC?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, the chair at UNC, the chair at UNC, or is he at Duke? Ed Chin's at Duke, isn't he?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. Ed's a good friend. And yeah, he and I were at Emory. But yeah, so interns, very important. Okay. And the AAMC or whoever else out there listening to this is going to want to shoot me and disown me and all these things. And I know we have work hours. Okay. But I cannot implore you enough as an incoming intern into a surgical specialty to get your hands right. Okay, your hands are what's going to really get you noticed. If you can tie a knot, if you can throw a stitch, all right, if you can expose an organ system, that's what's going to get you recognized. Okay, that's not easy to do. Okay, it's not easy to do at all. So, but what I say when I sort of brought in the whole comment about the work hours is that that's going to require you to do some things after hours. Now, it's totally against the policy for them to allow you to stay around beyond your work period of time. But here's something I'm going to especially since I heard you going into the cardiac track. All right. And here's a little thing I didn't really know how valuable this was going to be until I actually did it. I went and got on the recommendation of one of my attendings, because I was trying to figure out how, this heart sitting down in this cavity in the chest, and you've got all these various perspectives. You've got the lateral, the inferior, the side, and you're trying to sew and move around and those things. And I said, how can I simulate this? Simulation is good. There's no doubt about it. I had an interest when I was still in academics in simulation. I think I've seen some of the programs, but not all of the surgical programs are yet there. And you guys are also the video game generation. So you that hand-eye coordination is great. So if you have access to a simulator, get on it. All right. Let me just tell you, it will help you tremendously. Okay. But again, I don't know if not all the programs are as advanced as some. I don't know about UNC. But here's what I did. Stephen, I got a little styrofoam cooler. Okay, about enough for a six pack. I'm not going to tell you what I did with the six pack. Okay, and in the bottom of that cooler, I basically, what did I take? There was these little styrofoam things. I can't remember what they did with these things in the OR, but I put that inside the box. And over time, and I'm just telling you, I'm being honest today, and they knew I didn't really do it, in a nefarious kind of sense, but I stole instruments. I stole Castros, I stole needle drivers, I stole suture, and I just pop them in my pocket as I walked out of the OR. Now you got to be careful with that these days because they got cameras everywhere and they have all these inventory controls. But be nice to one of the nurses or techs or somebody; they'll give you what you need. And literally, I practiced. I would come home and I set the box on the dryer in our little pantry at my house. My wife, we had kids at that point, or we didn't have kids at that point, but I would just turn the dryer on because it would shake a little bit, just a little bit, and I would play around with Penrose drains. I would go to the farmer's market and get pig's feet. I mean, this is real practical stuff. I'm telling you what I did, but it made me much more prepared when I got in the operating room to perform. So practical. Think about every opportunity you can get to get your hands right. You're smart because UNC wouldn't have accepted you if you weren't. But it's very important that you stay up on the in-service exam and the things that you need to do with that exam. Okay, because it's important for you to get that and have that book knowledge as you progress through the program. But I will tell you today, and the thing that I see most commonly with surgical trainees is this their lack of exposure to the technical aspects of surgery. So much of what we do now has become minimally invasive and using, these surrogate instruments for our hands. I can tell you now, I sew most of the grafts that I sew, not the cornea grafts, but like the big aortic aneurysm grafts when I repair and suture in repair valves and suture in new valves and things like that. I usually use the endoscopic instruments because guess what? I've just gotten so used to seeing things at a distance and really having an instrument, but a much longer instrument between me and the actual target of my incision, suture, or whatever. And so big advice: take advantage within the confines of the resident work hours, and then even beyond that, all that you can to get that technical experience and that technical training. Even today, when I travel now, I'm an independent contract. I go from hospital to hospital. And I will tell you, I've gone to so many hospitals where when I get there, they're like, we've never seen anybody operate like this. But get that technical skill set, which is really the thing that's foundational. Okay. And then the second thing there is going to be judgment. I talked a little bit about that in that foundational thing. It's one thing to have the good hands. It's one thing to be book smart. But if you can't translate that into good decision making, you've got a problem. Because that's the other thing I see: bad judgment, bad skills layered on top of bad judgment, and God forbid, layered on top of all that, a bad attitude and a horrible persona, and just a bad. And I see that all the time. Those are the people that that sometimes I get the opportunity to try to defend in a lawsuit. And then when you look at and you start reading through the case, you see where at every point along the way, their insecurities came to bear. Didn't call the nurse back, failed to do this thing or that thing, spoke badly to a patient or the patient's family member or an administrator. It's those kinds. And remember what I said, the most important thing in this healthcare, I don't care what anybody tells you, is you. Because if you're flawed, you're going to deliver flawed care and the outcome's not going to be good. You're going to be a very unhappy doctor. I want you to be happy. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I love going. I sit there now some days. Now, of course, I'm not in the rat race. I'm not doing 300 cases anymore. But I love to sit. Families love it. We sit there and talk about everything. They're like, Doc, don't you have anything else to do? No, I want this person to really get to know who I am and understand what we're doing. So, Stephen, I hope that was helpful. Okay. Stay in connection. Let me know how you're doing. Reach back to me offline. Give me your information. I'll shoot you myself. You guys can have my cell phone, by the way. I don't care much about that. I mean, it's 678-467-2597. call me. Don't call me blind. Me, text me first. Tell me who you are, and generally I'll try to get back to you if it happens to be something that, outside, beyond the confines of this discussion. Thank you so much for that, Stephen. That's a great question. But yeah, man, get those hands right. I'm just going to tell you. Nobody else is going to really tell you that. But make sure you get your hands. Focus on that hand-eye coordination and your technical skills. And then secondly, on top of that, focus on how you translate all of that knowledge into making good clinical decisions. And then have a good attitude while you're at it. Man, this is your life. You're going to make money. You're going to be happy. You want to be happy. You want to enjoy this. This shouldn't be a burden. And if it is, you're in the wrong profession. All right, Nosa. Hey, man, what you got up? What's your comment or question?
Hi, Dr. Cooper.
Hey, what's up, man? Good to talk to you again.
You too, sir. Thank you so much. This was a very great. It was very great. Just listening to you talk, it was really very enlightening. I think for me, what I really took away was, you giving out the four, vision, interest, passion, and foundation. I think that really resonated with me. I actually wrote them down. Try to reassess your vision every 3 to 5 years. Figure out what you really passionate about, and never let that go.
Yep.
And think about what your interests are. Other than just clinical care, and try to pursue that if you can. And finally, just foundation, just getting a good foundation. I think those really resonated with me, and I think it's definitely something I'm going to take away from this, just moving forward.
Good. Well, thank you for that. And just to reiterate, I used to call that for my kids, if they were listening, they were like, oh God, no, he's not again talking about, I call it the decision diamond. Okay. And so at the top of that diamond is your vision, where you're trying to go. The left point or right point, it doesn't matter. There's nothing magic about left or right. Left side is your passion and skills. Over here, your interests. Okay. On the right side, the other side, just things that kind of, get you turned on. And then at the bottom of that diamond is the foundation. Everything that supports the foundation, skills, passion, interest, kind of get all of that inside the diamond and compress it. A diamond is just compressed carbon, highly compressed carbon. And so you want to try to compress all of that into you as the diamond. And all of that should be singularly focused on where you're going. Okay. And then everything else is just noise. It gives you the opportunity to try to put some kind of a framework about all of these things that are coming at you, all these decisions you have to make. Let those be your decisions. Let's not let that be the decision of, if you're in this business because your mama or daddy's in this business, you're in the wrong profession. You're going to be very unhappy. I've seen that. Okay. If you're here because your buddy or friend or somebody is doing this, or because you think you're going to get paid, first of all, if you're in this business for money, you're really out of your mind. Okay. Nowadays there's so much better way to make money, and a whole lot more than this. You're in the wrong profession. All right. So good. Thank you for that, Nosa. And I really appreciate your comment. Stephen, I see you there, my friend. You want to add something to it? Stephen's seasoned. He's been through all of this. What do you think, my friend?
I think it's just excuse me. I think it's beautiful to have this platform. I think that listening to your story, listening to your advice, your mentorship, your guidance, it's no wonder why or what attracts us to the field and what provides and allows for us to see the success that we do, because the prescription is very much the same. Having that plan, having that vision, sticking to it, surrounding yourself with great people, having a team around you that lift you up, that have great peer influence, are all the same things that I think just really attracted me to cardiac surgery. And the things that continue to keep me excited about the field today, simulation, doing minimally invasive surgery, robotic surgery, those are the things that being on the bleeding edge of science and medicine is truly intriguing. And then to hear just your perspective and experience about the business aspect, and understanding that to do the things that we need to do for our communities, to address the healthcare disparities, we have to understand who we are as a country and who we are as an entity, as a healthcare industry. in that capitalistic nature. This represents 18% of our GDP. So to be able to use that knowledge to be able to affect change, I think is important. And it takes that sort of perspective of that servant leadership that I think you've provided this evening. So just wanted to say thank you for the platform.
Good. Hey, Stephen, thank you so much. So Stephen's a thoracic surgeon, colleague and friend out in Virginia, and has gone through all the same things you guys have gone through. So I really appreciate you joining us, Stephen, and having and those comments. I think that's extremely important. So we're going to wrap up. It's a little bit after 6. I really want to thank you all so much for being here. We will do this again. This just happened to be a Sunday that I could get this in. And really just reach out and touch so many people all at once. And the group will grow. I don't care about that, honestly, because I think the people that are here, the people that want to be here. Hey, Lisa, hold on, wait a second. We can't go yet. Dr. Lisa, hold on. I got to give her permission. This is my classmate, you all. And she is, hold on. Let me invite my good friend, Dr. Lisa Fitzpatrick, and classmate. She's 30 years out. She won't talk about her age. I'm going to talk about it either. But hey, Lisa, can you come on for just a second? Hey, how are you?
Oh, what's up? I got a notification. I was like, what is he doing in here?
I'm just here talking to people about talking to young doctors about healthcare. That's what. Are you just now? Literally, you're just now popping. I don't know how this works, honestly. Someone told me for I guess if you're for privacy's sake and some other things, maybe do this on Clubhouse. So that's why I'm here.
Oh, okay. Well, next time, give me a heads up and I'll join you.
Well, I did, Lisa. I always do. Is like, you know.
You did?
Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about that later.
Okay, so you guys are closing the room down?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to close down now, but we'll be back. We'll be back. And so, hey, you know what I think I want to do is, now that you're here, I'd like to get you on here and let's talk a little bit about Grapevine Health and what you're doing in the community. How about that?
That sounds good. Let me know.
I will do that. That is my good friend and classmate, Dr. Lisa Fitzpatrick, she's infectious disease, but she's much more than that. She's been around the world, and again, when we talk about passion and interest, her thing is education, health education, informing people about what's out there, getting rid of the myths and all the misinformation and disinformation. That's what Lisa does. And she's got a great platform, has now been recognized. I'm not even gonna start naming off who you've been recognized by, because I'll completely screw it up. But a lot of media outlets have picked her up. She's a commentator for a number of them on various subjects related to just about anything. And so she's a really good friend. Well, thank you, Lisa. I feel so proud. And I have to acknowledge one more person, everybody, because we don't have that many in here. So I want to, Denise. There's Denise in the chat, or I just sent you an invitation to join us to say hello or goodbye, or shut up, Coop, if you want to say that too.
Yeah, well, I'll catch you next time.
Okay, Lisa. All right.
We'll take care.
Okay, see you. All right, thank you. Right. Bye-bye. All right, good. So Denise is not going to join us, but hey, look, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Young Doctors Clubhouse. This is for you. Invite your friends if you have topics or issues or things you want to discuss that you want more information on. Stephen, great question. Nosa and Dr. Noble, thank you so much for your comments. Thank you to all of you out there in social media land. Otherwise, Alan, stay with me, my friend. I think you sent me a message to connect. I'm here. Janelle, hey, homegirl, we're listening in. Ridge Hester, hey there. Khalid Shash, thank you. DeAndre Witt, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, look forward to the next time. Take care and have a fantastic week ahead. Bye-bye.